Umpire Magazine, and I can't wait to go across the pond to listen to Across the Pod, fresh out of Wales. Special stuff. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, in Team Season Preview 31 out of 32, I was joined by Freddie Hall and Freddy Harper-Davis as we look ahead to the team's upcoming season. There's discussion of the team's off-season.
If we were that concerned, we maybe could have addressed it a little bit more in the draft. At least these moves are a vague look at what could happen in the future.
Both Freddys discussed the addition of head coach Mike McCarthy.
I'm more confident on both sides of the ball this year, but I've still got a weird feeling that it ended a very similar pattern to how it has done in the last 4 or 5 years.
And much more, as both Freddys predict their team's overall record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am as ever your host today, Andy Davis, and we are here for Team Season Preview 31 out of 32. Boy, we have really made it towards the end, and today's team in focus, is a team that you can see from the title is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And before I introduce our two guests, this podcast is sponsored by Fantasy Game Day app. Use code Andy5 at checkout for money back off your first paid lineup. Now with me, I've got two returning guests and two returning Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Joining back on the show today, firstly, is the franchise tag's Freddie Hall. Freddie, it's good to have you on.
Thank you for having me on, Andy. Firstly, really appreciate it. Always a pleasure talking Pittsburgh Steelers football.
Well, good to have you on. You are our second franchise tag member to make an appearance on the season previews. We had a fellow franchise tag podcast host, Adam Martin, appear on the Green Bay Packers season preview. So do, if you want to listen to that, and check it out and what he predicted his team to go. Our other returning Steelers fan, our other returning guest back on the show today is Freddy Harper-Davis. Freddie, it's good to have you on as well.
Yeah, thanks. Also, thanks to have me on, Andy, and looking forward to our season preview. I think this is about the 4th or 5th time that the three of us have done the Steelers now. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how original we are with our predictions.
Well, yeah, this is our 5th year of doing season previews. I don't recall any other Steelers fans any point in any part of the season coming on. So I'd imagine this is both of your 5th years appearing on the season previews. But let's head into the ins and outs of the Steelers off-season. So, the main ins include the likes of Jamel Dean, Rico Dowdle, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Jaquan Brisker. And also you did trade for Michael Pittman. You did also receive a 7th round pick from this year's draft in exchange for giving the Colts a 6th round selection from this year's draft. Also saw the likes of Aaron Rodgers re-sign. And then in free agency, you brought in the likes of Travis Homer, Robert Tonyan, Landon Roberts. And then in terms of the players that you saw leave the franchise, this includes the likes of Adam Thielen to retirement, Adam Thielen to retirement, Skylar Thompson, Kenneth Gainwell, Calvin Austin, Scotty Miller, Jonnu Smith, Donald Parham, Connor Hayward, Isaac Samalo, Andres Pete, Chuck Clark, Kyle Duggar, a friend of ours, Freddie, Miles Killebrew, Jabril Peppers. And then finally, in the draft, you guys took in the first round, 21st overall, Max Iheanacho, took the likes of Jeremy Bernard in the 2nd round, took quarterback Drew Allett, as well as Dalen Everett and Jennings Dunker in the 3rd, Caden Wetchen in the 4th, Riley Nowakowski in the 5th, Gabriel Rubio in the 6th, and the likes of Robert Spears-Jennings and Eli Heindreich in the 7th round. Boys, I'll go to you first, Freddie Hall. Your take on the team's off-season?
Yeah, I think not got as young as I would like to have done. I'm sure we'll go on to other changes that happen in the organisation further in the conversation. But I don't think you can be upset with some of our moves. Jamel Dean, Rico Dowdle, bringing back Aaron Rodgers, bringing in Seb Joe Day. I mean, they're good moves. I thought my aim for the Steelers this offseason would be to get younger. We've not done that outside of the draft. But that's just the blueprint of what the Steelers football is at the minute, is that we're going for experience. I think in our minds, we're going for every year. So we're adding to players who can make a difference here and now. And I think you've got some players in the ones that you said that have brought in that can be some difference makers. The ones that we've left, I'm comfortable with all of them. There's no one really I'm that begrudged about, I suppose. I mean, yeah, like I said, friend of the show, Miles Killer, well, friend of us and the show, I suppose, Miles Killebrew. It would have been nice to see him just because we, had a fun afternoon with him once. And Isaac Somalu would have been his good cover, I suppose. But outside of that, I'm pretty okay with it all.
Fair. And Freddy Harper-Davis, do you share that sentiment with Freddie?
Yeah, I do actually. Almost exactly. I would have liked us to get a bit younger. I'd like us to think a little bit longer term than maybe the next year or two. But I mean, it was pretty obvious the moment that Mike McCarthy came in that the Steelers weren't thinking about rebuilding. This is going to be the Steelers of reloading every year. And Aaron Rodgers obviously signing a 1-year deal and then saying this is our ride or die for the last year. Suggests that too. Michael Pittman also coming in suggests the same. So, I mean, for a team that's obviously clearly going for it this year, I quite like the moves we've made. But again, does it really make us a proper contender? I'm not so sure. But yeah, Rico Dowdle coming in, I like Michael Pittman coming in. I'm a huge fan of Jamal Dean. So very happy he's come in. Elsewhere, yeah, they're all right. But I thought if we were going for it this year, maybe in the draft, we wouldn't go for quite so many project players. But that's just me. Our first round pick was very much a project choice. And I'm a bit surprised that we say we go for it and then we pick somebody like that rather than someone who's going to start day one. So, yeah, again, it feels a little bit like a small identity crisis with the Steelers. But we shall wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, you got Drew Aller coming in, I mentioned before, and of course, he's not going to start in this year. And obviously, you've got him and Will Howard there in that room learning behind Aaron Rodgers. And they got that year now where they can learn off, say what we want about his recent years, one of the best quarterbacks of his era, chance to learn off him, how he conducts himself off the field and on the field as a pro football-wise. I think, they've got the guys they want now. Whether they'll go with Howard and Allard, I don't know. We'll wait to see what they'll do with that side of things. But it's Aaron Rodgers coming in, back in for a year, someone to learn from. It can't be the worst thing in the world for those two, right?
I think that it's good that we've gone and sort of got a few guys to sit behind Rodgers in case of potentially if Aaron went down injured. I mean, it happened in New York, didn't it? So I'm fine with that. There's a bit more of a plan. I like the Jurala pick. I think it's a decent pick down the board. Yeah, all right. It could have been a third round pick we could have used on a starter, but how many of them was there coming into this draft? I'm not so sure. But there certainly was options. Will Howard, that was what I picked last year, further down the board. Happy with that. At least we've got some sort of it's a struggle because as you said, me and Freddie have been on the previews of the Steelers very consistently in trying not to repeat myself or ourselves, I suppose, and feel like it's a bit of a copy and paste scenario year on year, even though it feels that way with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We never reset and got ready for Ben going. At least these moves are a vague look at what could happen in the future when Aaron goes, and he can't play forever. His best days are behind him, though I would say he played remarkably better last season than anyone gave him credit for, I thought, in the end.
Yeah, I mean, single-digit interceptions, I think 21 touchdowns. I think the issue for Rodgers is that you're sort of comparing him to what he has done in his career. Obviously, those numbers he had and where he performed was not kind of what we're used to. Obviously, we're used to, full-time MVP. We're used to these amazing seasons. But I still think that's stat line, it's not a bad season. I don't recall him being that bad last season. So I think it could have been a lot worse. It could have been, it could have been last year. Had a Big Ben. We saw how he performed that year. He was basically a statue. So, yeah, you've got that. And I will say as well, I've mentioned it on the show before, next off-season, if they're not too confident in either of those two, there's a certain quarterback who could be available in the offseason who just screams Pittsburgh to me. Baker Mayfield could be available on a free next summer.
Yeah, he's possible. And obviously the draft, we thought last year would end up being quite loaded this year, and then it just wasn't. And there's a possibility of that again this year. But again, in college football, you just don't know. You see it every year. They say, "Oh, there's a big draft coming in," and then 2 or 3 quarterbacks underperform, and then it just doesn't happen. Or you see some people say, "Oh, it's a dead draft," and then you see somebody emerge. So it's always risky with the draft, but there is potential for at least 4 or 5 quarterbacks there. The flip side of that is that the Steelers are probably going to be in that position where they're going to be a bit too good to end up getting one of those again, and probably drop to that similar draft pick that, as Freddie said earlier, we don't want to repeat ourselves, but it sounds like expectations are we'll end up in a similar place in the draft that we have done in the last 4 or 5 years. One thing I will say, though, it's nice we've finally got ourselves an out-and-out wide receiver too as well. I think that will make a big difference on the offense this year, because it's been so focused on either DK Metcalf or George Pickens before him that actually it's going to be nice now to be able to spread it out properly between 2 out-and-out good wide receivers with some other options there as well if needs be.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Pittman Jr. was a guy that I thought in Indy was good, but I didn't think he was ever like a true elite WR1. But I always said for years, you put him as a WR2, I think he could be really dangerous. I think Michael Pittman coming in as number 2 behind DK Metcalf, I think that's an exciting prospect. And I think, those two together, that could be quite good. But of course, one in we've kind of mentioned in the show comes in the coaching position. Of course, Mike Tomlin leaves the franchise after many years as the head coach without a losing season in that entire time. Coming in is a former coach of Rodgers in Mike McCarthy, who had a long time with the Packers, won a Super Bowl with Rodgers, and then went to the Cowboys in, I think, 4 years he was there. He comes in now to the Steelers as the head coach. What were your boys' thoughts on that? Because he's a head coach that does get a lot of criticism. Been a lot of recent playoff mishaps that people have often alluded into. I mean, the one everyone talked about recently with the Cowboys game where they had Zeke playing center in the final snap. What are your thoughts on the move? We'll go to you first, Freddy Harper-Davis. Your thoughts on that move for Mike McCarthy?
I quite like it. I must admit, when that news broke, I was a bit shocked because I thought we'd go for one of the young up-and-coming coaches in terms of a rebuild. That was my view, because I thought this is the time for Steelers to... Mike Tomlin era's gone, let's move on. But that's clearly not what we did. Unfortunately, one of the coaches I really wanted has ended up in Baltimore, but that seems to happen a lot in the draft. So we'll exclude that with the Ravens nicking all the players I want. Yeah, I like McCarthy. I think he's a solid pick. I think he got a little bit too much hate in Dallas, purely because the Cowboys were better under him than they were under Jason Garrett before him. And then they also had some horrific injury luck as well when he was in charge. I mean, Dak went down for the best part of a season in one of the years, and then he's had all kinds of other injuries. And then the defense was rubbish one year, and then it came back and was one of the best in the league after that under Dan Quinn. So yeah, he's been. He was solid in Dallas. He was solid in Green Bay. He won a Super Bowl with a top quarterback, which sounds just like Mike Tomlin. The only difference is he's on the offensive side of the ball. And obviously we've gone from a coach that's on the defensive side of the ball. I like the coaching hires he's brought in as his coordinators. I really do. I think they're good, solid picks. But again, it just screams like it's not more of the same because it's very different, but it feels like we're going to go for a completely different formula to get to the same outcome, and that's kind of how it feels with the McCarthy hire.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help thinking that Rodgers being there had some sort of influence on him. And although I was under the impression that they sort of fell out with each other towards the end of their time in Green Bay. There was something about a massage, I want to say. There was something that came out. From my memory, there was a bit of unrest between McCarthy and Rodgers towards the end of their time in Green Bay, which is why he left. But obviously, they seem to have repaired those differences. Freddie Hall, same for you. How are you feeling about the hire? Because I was surprised by it. But I suppose if you're going to get, I don't know what to make of it. I think he'll be solid, but I don't think he's much different to Mike Tomlin in terms of what he brings you wins, losses in the season.
I wanted to go younger. I wanted to go more fresh, more new, a different direction. I remember when we were in Dublin, when the Steelers played, and I chatted to a few Steelers fans over pints of Guinness, and a name that kept coming up to a lot of fans, and I sort of looked into it a bit more and enjoyed the idea as well, was Marcus Freeman, the head coach of Notre Dame from college. It was a big name, but it was rumoured, heavily rumoured to go to the Steelers. And I was quite bought in on that fact. And when it got close to time and we were looking at coaches, I can't remember whether it overlapped. I think it was McCarthy signed, then he signed an extension, or he signed an extension, then we got McCarthy. And it was like, well, clearly he's not coming in, or maybe we're going in a different direction. McCarthy is basically Mike Tomlin, but offensively. Like, it's a safe pair of hands. We're going to be good on offense. Now, that is a different call to what we've had in the last few years. And to a lot of fans is exciting. Unfortunately, Steelers fans get just as excited about defense because we're so used to such exciting defense. But I don't think we'd know what to do with an exciting offense. So that'll be a fun, different, maybe tangent we'll have this year. And if it works with the coordinators, we may have a good defense because we've still got some good players on that defense. But I expect an uptick in the offense as well, with the players we've brought in, Michael Pittman as well, as Freddie alluded to a moment ago, with being a good number 2 to DK Metcalf. I think it will be more exciting, but I think it's the safe pair of hands, but just an offensive style. I don't think this was a reach for the stars sort of move. And you could be guilty for going, oh, well, we've had coaches, we've only had 3 head coaches in a crazy amount of time. Mike McCarthy at his age and everything like that in his history, it's not very Steelers-esque. Well, it's a different time. It's a different game. You probably aren't going to have head coaches who stay around for 10, 15 years anymore. It's certainly, now Tomlin's gone, when you look around the league, who has been? Sean McVay. He's probably one of the longest tenured coaches in this league now. And all 3 of us can sit here and remember when he got hired. So I'm fine with it not being a guy that he's going to be here for the next 10, 15 years, potentially. I'm not fine with just having another safe pair of hands and someone who can get us over an 8-win mark. I think it could have been more ambitious. And I think that's something that we've seen from the Steelers this offseason, and even the Rooney family have said it. We're not tearing it up. We're not starting again. We're continuing on the journey we're on. But it doesn't scream ambition, does it? And ambition's ultimately what gets you to the big games. It gets you to the AFC Championship. It gets you to the Super Bowl. It gets you to win the Super Bowl. We know we're an okay playoff team. Known that for a while now. I don't ever think I've seen a Steelers team. Maybe early when I started, in the early days of Roethlisberger, Bell, Brown, that team, I would have gone, that's a team that you could see winning the Super Bowl. Now, I just see more of the same. And it's frustrating because I think we echo most Steelers fans' thoughts, is that it is just a bit of a frustration. It's just a frustration at lack of ambition and a lack of guts. And it sort of makes me think that there's too much pride with the Rooney family and how they want to run this organization in a modern world, potentially. And, for their pride, they're going to have, quite frankly, I think, mediocrity.
It would not shock me. And I think also you're in a quite tough division, which makes it even harder to try and get into the playoffs when you've got to play, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow twice a year. Now, moving on from offense to defense, I mean, you had the 4th worst pass defense last season. And obviously you've gone out, we mentioned these signings, Joseph Day, Jamel Dean, Brisker coming in. How's your thoughts on the defense? Obviously, you mentioned about Mike Tomlin as well, leaving the franchise defensive-minded coach, moving to an offensive-minded coach in McCarthy. Does that side of the ball worry you at all, boys? I'll go to you first. We'll go to Freddie Hall this time. Freddie, your take on the defense, which after what did struggle last year in the NFL?
Well, when we talk about moves in the off season, we could have gone out and got ourselves a very premium corner. There was some available. Getting Jamel Dean, I think, isn't a bad consolation prize. I think he's a decent cornerback. I like him. I liked him at Tampa. I think he's a good player. I think it makes our room better. Porter, hopefully stepping up again, would be really great. Ramsey continuing in this sort of safety role he's now gone to. I like it. I think if we were that concerned, we maybe could have addressed it a little bit more in the draft. Because what did we took a cornerback in the third in Dalen Everett. I mean, I don't know where he went, but Jamod McCoy was dropping, and a lot of people had like a first round grade on him. Could he been a risk that we maybe could have taken? I think it could have been a dice that you could have rolled, and it was my frustration last year. Is we've got this great front line, and yet we get beat down in the middle of the park so easily, and that's a bit of linebacker injury. That's a little bit of cornerbacks needing to be better. We made a few moves last season where we changed it up, and we brought in people like Darius Slay and players like that, and I think that just needs improvement. Hopefully we can see a bit more of a step up from the guys that we've brought in, from the guys that are there. But it's a focus that we have. Everyone talks about our great pass rush in Highsmith and Watt and Hayward and Harmon and that awesome defensive line. But ultimately, we can put pressure on the quarterback. But there's a lot of really good quarterbacks in this league now who can still get that ball down the field. And we need to become more rounded. We actually have been rounded for a long time. It almost was like we got a bit found out last year, even though I would have said not last season, the season before, we also looked that way. It's now sort of come to roost. So hopefully we can try and develop the guys that we've got there already. The guys that come in, hopefully, play at a really high level, find some form if they were out of form. And we're famous for our defense. So hopefully we can get back on that pedestal of being a top 10 defense or even a top 5 one. I doubt it, but I don't see why not with the guys that we've got on our defense.
Yeah, I mean, Freddy Harper-Davis, you're going to go up against guys like AJ Brown, Jamar Chase, Burrow. You think about also, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. You think about Courtland Sutton and Waddle. But then you've also got games against, obviously playing the Falcons week 1. That could be Cooper Rush. If Tua and Penix aren't healthy, you could be getting Cooper Rush playing. Whoever plays quarterback for the Browns, is Daniel Jones going to be the same guy for the Colts? Shark had a good end of the season, but still not the polished product. And Stroud had his problems in the playoffs, even struggled against you guys, even though they won. And then Cam Ward isn't also the finished product either. Bryce Young's a bit inconsistent. So there's a chance that even though you're playing some good teams offensively, there's also some teams that are just average or worse. So there's a good chance there for them to really show what they can do, especially against those opponents they're playing this year.
Yeah, it's true. But and also when you get to sort of week 9 onwards, you end up with a load of injuries on offense and you don't know who you're going to end up playing, especially at quarterback. The Steelers over the years, especially against AFC North teams, have played against the Ravens with about 5 or 6 different quarterbacks, the Bengals with 4 or 5 different quarterbacks, and the Browns change their quarterbacks every 3 weeks anyway. So you don't really know who you're going to end up playing on offense, but you do know with those AFC North games, they're going to be grudge matches that usually end about 16-10. Even with a bit of a more offensive-minded Steelers this year, I still imagine that the AFC North games are going to look very similar. The one thing I think that's a big thing on defense for me this year is rotation, because we get to the end of the season every year, and it looks like the same 3 or 4 big-name players just look like they've completely burned out. It's vital for me this year that in December, January time, when the going gets tough and we're in the mix, that we've got the likes of Watt, Hayward, who are more experienced and much older players now, Highsmith even, who's been around the league a few years. You've got to keep them up. You've got to keep them fit. You've got to keep them healthy, and actually playing at 90% of their game rather than sort of 60, 70, which we've seen in the last few years. We see in the playoff games when there is no offense and we're relying on our defense so often. As I say, hopefully a bit more of an offense this year. They'll play less snaps, but even on defense, I want to see some of these rotations to try and take some of these guys out so they're not playing every single snap on defense. And Patrick Graham's been brought in, who I think he's okay. He seems to have a good reputation amongst the players in terms of defensive coordinator. I mean, but in his defense, and I know his defensive stats aren't great, but he's had some pretty awful defenses he's had to negotiate with over the last few years. So it'd be interesting to see how he does with some very big name players on that defense and whether he can step up to the plate. I'm glad for the fresh start because the Steelers badly need to change on defense. I mean, it looked a mess last year, and I think the conclusion was made by Mike Tomlin and the rest of the staff that they couldn't get any more out of this team, and unless there was a massive rotation of players, it was going to look like more of the same. So we shall see. I'm more confident on both sides of the ball this year, but I've still got a weird feeling that it ends in a very similar pattern to how it has done in the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, that is a good segue to our final segment, which is win, lose or tie. So for those of you that aren't familiar with this segment of the show, each fan that comes on predicts their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with a win, loss or tie answer. Now, boys, of course, last year the Steelers went 10-7, as they normally do. Do you by chance remember what you boys predicted last year?
Probably 10-7, to be honest, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe 9-8.
10-7 exactly. So you boys got it right. You were one of the few that got their prediction bang on this year and got, as we probably all thought they do, and get 10-7. Classic Tomlin. So what we're going to do, as there are two guests involved predicting, they're going to go back to back. Freddie is doing the first game, and then Freddy Harper-Davis is doing the first game. Then Freddie Hall will do the second, and they'll go back and forth until they get to the end of week 18. So week 1 starts in Pittsburgh as you host the Atlanta Falcons. Freddie Harper-Davis, win, lose or tie?
I don't want to be too optimistic here, but I'm looking at the Falcons, and as we said earlier about their 2 dodgy quarterbacks, and we don't know whether they're either going to be fit. I don't really trust either if they were fully fit. So I like the Falcons roster. I've said this for the last 3 or 4 years. The Falcons have got some great players all over their team, but a bit like the Steelers for the last few years, until they fix a long-term solution at quarterback, I don't see them doing much, and I think the Steelers at home win this game. So Steelers win for me.
Okay, so week 2, you were on the road for the first time this year, and you are taking on the Patriots, of course, Freddie Hall. 2 of our friends from the podcast world in Shane Brennan and Sky Pank will be keen to know what you say for this one. So week 2, Patriots in Foxborough, win, lose or tie?
You can tell them 2 Pat's pals idiots, but we're going to New England and winning. And I only think that, but I just think it's like a week 2 thing. I think Patriots are going to do way better than Steelers this year, and they're going to be a good team. I just think if you're going to beat a bigger team, like early, you want to play big teams early. Like the ones that obviously your division, you don't always play early, but the bigger teams you want to play early. I think we can maybe just nick them. We feel good after that first game against Atlanta. I don't know. Yeah, If it was week 5, I'd probably say loss. But I'm erring on the side of positivity for week 2.
Well, week 3, you are back at home, but this time, and it's your first AFC North game of the season. You're taking on the Bengals.
Well, amazingly, I think we're going to go 3-0 because I'm looking at the Bengals defense again, same as we say every year. And yeah, they've brought in some good players on their defensive line, but as Freddie mentioned about the Steelers and our secondary last year, which was just not good enough. I look at the Bengals secondary and I can name 2, maybe 3 players in that team. I'm not convinced it's still good enough yet for teams not to just put a ton of points on them. We all know about the Bengals offense and what they offer, but I'm pretty confident that we can beat the Bengals at home. That might be a split series, I think, to be honest. And I think the AFC North again, it might be fair to go split series, but Steelers at home to the Bengals week 3 with a rebuilt defense. I think the Steelers win that.
Well, week 4, you're back on the road and another AFC North team. This time you're taking on at Huntington Bank Field, the Cleveland Browns.
I think we lose that. I think it's a split. It's the split thing, like Freddie said. I think I always with the Browns have us win one, lose one, and I sort of flip between at theirs or as every time. But I always pretty much pencil in a win and a loss of either Bengals and the Browns, and then the Ravens is just how it's just I have a little bit more of a think about, I suppose. But yeah, I think we lose it. In Freddie's word, that's our first loss of the season. But for me, that's 2 losses in a row. I think we go back-to-back loss, Bengals and the Browns.
Interesting. So, Freddy Harper-Davis has gone for a win against the Bengals, but you're going for a loss. So it's interesting, your different opinions, and interesting to see how you get on the rest of the episode and whether you do have similar predictions or not. But week 5 sees Michael Pittman play his former team as you take on at home the Colts.
I just want to say I completely agree with Freddie's pick in Cleveland, because Cleveland Browns, we seem to play a lot on Thursday night football on the road, and I think we've lost every single one, and to some really bad quarterbacks as well. So I completely and utterly agree. I think we lose that. We lose it every time. Jameis Winston being one of them. I think again, I seem to have picked the fairly friendly home game so far, because I think Indy started really strong last year. Obviously, then Daniel Jones went down for long-term injury, and the Colts then fell apart. Although I think they were falling apart before that, if I'm being completely honest. I don't think they were going to last regardless. They're a hard team to predict this year. I don't really know what they're going to look like. Obviously, a bit like the Falcons, they've paid their running back a huge amount of money, which, I mean, they're both great players, but personally, I wouldn't pay running backs that sort of money. I can remember when we very nearly paid Le'Veon Bell a crazy amount of money, and then obviously went to the Jets and completely flopped. So, yeah, I don't know. As the Colts, I can't predict. But I think the Steelers are a better all-round team. So again, I'm just going to have to go with the Steelers. I won a game, but I think we lose. But so far, 3, I think we win.
Actually, on Le'Veon Bell, I don't know whether you boys have seen the list of first-time eligible Hall of Famers. So Big Ben's in there, of course. You expect him. He might even be a first ballot. Antonio Brown's in there. I was surprised by that because of his antics. But on the field, you can't argue with what he did in his career. I do think if it wasn't for his off-the-field conduct, I think he would be a shoo-in for being a first ballot Hall of Famer. But the one that Le'Veon Bell really surprised me. He had obviously a good time in Pittsburgh for a few years, but I was really surprised he was someone that that is basically a Hall of Fame eligible player. I'm surprised he's even in the list of players they mentioned, because I don't think he makes that list at all.
He might be eligible. We don't mean he's going. It really don't. If you had to do with the order, it would be Big Ben, Brown, Bell. If you were going to do like a quarterback, obviously Big Ben. People do forget how good Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell were. They were so good when I first started watching, and Bell. I don't know. Bell was a different running back, because he was he wasn't like your traditional just powerhouse, and he wasn't crazy fast, but he was just so twitchy. He could just be in open space out of nowhere, and just a monster to be able to you couldn't get him down, and he was a lot bigger than a lot of other running backs. And then Brown, on the flip side of it, was a lot smaller than a lot of the other wide receivers around, and grabbed everything out of the air and was beating people over the top, and was so fast. And both careers sort of ended on such a sour note, really, with the moves they made and the antics that happened. I mean, Le'Veon Bell antics off the field were bad, but at the same time, people don't really talk about Big Ben's antics off the field. So, if you want to look into that, there's mud under the hood wherever you look with NFL players, unfortunately. But Le'Veon Bell doesn't sniff the Hall of Fame for me. Antonio Brown, I think, definitely has to be in a conversation for sure. It would depend what the other if you give me the name of the other wide receivers in that list.
Well, the thing is, the players they've mentioned, there's 2 there that I think are absolute locks to be in: Rob Gronkowski, Adrian Peterson. Yeah. And then the one that you probably could argue to be first ballot, certainly Hall of Famer, regardless whether it's first ballot or not. Richard Sherman is one of those players mentioned. And then the likes of Andrew Whitworth, I think he...
First ballot.
Yeah, I think he...
Sherman for me second ballot. He was very good. Don't get me wrong, he was very good, but he's not the dominating corner of it like that. He was a very good corner on a very good defense. That sort of is a little. I don't know. That just tarnishes it a little bit for me, I suppose. But then again, is a wide receiver as good as their quarterback? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Gronk is definitely Adrian Peterson. Definitely, like, yeah. I don't know about the Whitworth for me is first ballot. I don't know, Freddie. What do you think? Am I being harsh?
It's hard to call because how many do you usually get in 3 or 4 normally? And you'd imagine that, yeah, as you say, Peterson walks in, Gronk gets in, and you think Ben will be first ballot. I've seen people say he shouldn't be, but I mean, you've two Super Bowls. He's got the stats and also the really insane moments. I mean, that pass in the Super Bowl against the Cardinals. I mean, that should get him in on his own, let alone everything else. So I think Ben walks in first ballot. So how many new players do you really put in first ballot? Probably the 3 we've mentioned plus Big Ben. I love Richard Sherman as a player, but I don't think I'd put him in first ballot. AB, I think, should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he'll get in there, obviously, for his off the field, but I struggle to think of many wide receivers I've enjoyed watching more than I've enjoyed watching AB in the sort of 12, 13 years I've been watching the NFL. I think there was a point where him and Julio Jones were just miles ahead of absolutely everyone else.
Yeah, like that. Like I said, if you give me a list of like 10 wide receivers of that era, I can imagine AB is probably like third, maybe like second. I could argue, like, and also the Richard Sherman point. I loved Richard Sherman. I was like, when I was deciding who to pick as a team when I was first getting to the NFL, Seattle were like, this close. Like I loved the Legion of Boom. I loved all that. I loved how in the face they were, and he was pivotal in that, and he was brilliant in that. But yeah, if you give me a list of that era of wide receiver, I think a lot of people would put AB lower down, but he shouldn't be. He's easily second. Julio Jones was just a monster though.
Yeah, it was Andrew Whitworth. Do you think? I'm saying this as we've just had a punter make the Hall of Fame. But do you think the fact that he's a lineman might make him, because linemen just don't stand out as much as receivers?
No, given that he was left tackle, it's hugely important. It's the second most important position in football. It's sure he's been to what, 2-3 Super Bowls, won one. Has he won one or won 2?
I can't think. He was with the Bengals, wasn't he, for a while? And then he obviously had the Rams when he lost obviously Super Bowl 53, and then won obviously 3 years later. I can't recall him being in another one.
I'm having a little look just to.
Unless, yeah.
He was at the Bengals and the Rams. Mad long career as well. One-time Super Bowl champion, Walter Payton Man of the Year, 2-time All-Pro, 1-time second team, 4 times 4 Pro Bowls. He goes in.
I think what we're looking at, AP, Gronk, Whitworth, and then either one of those guys or maybe someone who isn't first ballot who's eligible. So we'll see. I can't think who they are now, but move on to week 6 though, Freddie Hall, as you travel to Florida and take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And we will lose against them. They'll beat us. They're a good team. Baker Mayfield will have the whole hating Steelers thing as well. Probably that'll be, have that Michael Jordan motivation thing about it, where makes up his own motivation in his head, because we were never that asked about Baker, even though he did beat us in a playoff game. So they're a good team. They're a better team. I think the Bucs are decent. They're gonna be going to them as well at their place. Yeah.
Well, week 7, you travel to Paris and take on the New Orleans Saints at the Stade de France. Again, that me and Freddie Hall will be going to, even rooming up together for the game as well. Freddy Harper-Davis, are we going to see a win for the Steelers or a loss?
I think now I found out that you two are going together, I want to predict the most miserable Steelers loss going, just to wind the clogs up a bit. But this is hard because I really like the Saints. I think they're criminally underrated. I love the rebuild they're doing. I love their coach. I like their quarterback. The fact it's taken them so long to get rid of their stupid dead cap that they had for years and years and years just annoyed me. How they thought, oh, we'll beat the cap every year, and obviously it was going to come back to haunt them. But this rebuild, I'm loving. I love their roster. I like their team. They're a fun team to watch. They're a team I want to get behind, and I've never said that about the New Orleans Saints for a long time. Not since probably sort of the mid 2010s when you had Drew Brees and early stages of Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, and I mean that was a team I loved. But since then, it's been a bit sort of mixed bag, and I don't know what to call on this one. I've said 3 Steelers win, so I think I'm going to go with the Saints. But this for me is a flip of a coin.
I've got it as a win, but I was like, it does not shock me if we lose this game though. It's in the broad game, like anything can happen. I also think the Saints will make the playoffs, but I like. With the privilege of what me and Andy get to do with going to these games and stuff like that, I think what we sometimes forget is we do watch some games, and some of these teams that we thought were going to be not very good or whatever, or whatever teams do sometimes go to the playoffs. And like we said it on our episode the other day about Denver. When we watched Denver against the Jets, my God, Denver were bad. That like on offense, Bo Nix was awful. He was not good that game at all. We said the defense was incredible for Denver, but their offense was like so stale, and Bo was not great at all. And yet they got to the championship game. So like, so it wouldn't shock me that we beat the Saints in Paris, and then the Saints end up going to the playoffs and having an all right run in the playoffs as well. I'm not saying the championship game, but I'm quite confident and bullish that the Saints will make the playoffs this year. So yeah, it's a coin flip. I've gone win. You've gone loss. It's splitting the hairs really.
I mean, exciting for you, Freddie. Of course, getting to see your team play again. You saw them, of course, play last year in Dublin, where they did beat the Vikings, and it's going to be a good atmosphere because it'll be the team by far with the most connection to a city they're playing internationally, with New Orleans and the French connection. I think the Saints are going to pull out a lot of stops sort of make it for like a home game. We had Daniel Harper on, part of the Saint City Me podcast, for the Saints season preview, and he talked about how he's been in touch with representatives from the team, and they've been talking about how they're really going to make it feel like a home game. Still think that doesn't mean they're going to win the game, but for you, Freddie, how excited are you to once again see the Steelers play, and of course see a bit of Paris as well in the process?
Well, last season in Dublin was the first time I've ever seen the Steelers play live. So that was, such a cool moment in general. Being able to see them like back-to-back years is pretty mental in my head, actually, especially not even in Pittsburgh. Even though I've been to Pittsburgh, I've not seen them play in Pittsburgh. So yeah, like dead excited, really fun. Yeah, it's always a really, really great experience. I really, really, I even looked at it today about trying to get to see Pittsburgh in America this season. I doubt I'll be able to, but I didn't know whether maybe it might be a New York game. I hadn't really properly looked at the schedule till today, really, because it doesn't overly interest me looking at it with a fine tooth comb before the season starts. A little bit like preseason doesn't overly interest me in a way. But yeah, so hopefully maybe next season will be a year to go to Pittsburgh and actually see a game. That would be really wonderful. But yeah, like it's just incredibly lucky, very, very lucky to be able to see him back-to-back years internationally. It's great fun.
I'll tell you what, Freddie, one of the cheapest flights I've had to America was going to Boston, and you're playing him, what we mentioned before, in week 2. You could convince Sky and Shane to come as well, and yeah, that you could try and do that maybe if you're trying to look at a game in America that is in Pittsburgh. Boston's quite a short flight. It's it's the cheapest out of a lot of flights in America from the UK. Maybe that could be the one you go for.
I mean, I am otherwise engaged at the college game in London, unfortunately, on the Saturday.
It's that weekend, isn't it? Yeah, it's that weekend.
And anyway, I got bigger plans. I got bigger plans than Boston. It's fine. It's okay.
Well, week 8, Freddie, is a game that against a team that we thought might be playing yourselves in Paris, but also playing the Saints in Paris. You're taking on the Browns.
I have us having the win here. So yeah, I had us losing earlier at the Browns, and then we'll beat them at home.
Well, week 9 is a bye week, so week 10, Freddy Harper-Davis, you are travelling to Ohio and taking on the Bengals.
Yeah, well, I said we'd split the series, and I've already said that we'll beat the Bengals at home. So just like Freddie, I think we'll lose away.
Well, then week 11, Freddie Hall.
I've actually got on my notes that we lose twice.
Interesting. What, to the Browns?
No, to the Bengals.
Oh, to the Bengals, sorry, yeah.
Maybe that was just the state of mind I was in earlier. I think it's because I'm a little bit more positive about the Bengals defense than Freddie is, maybe. Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, I would win or lose here. It wouldn't shock me if we had 2 losses against the Bengals, but it wouldn't shock. It very much depends how they're looking, not how we're looking, I think. So, yeah.
Well, week 11 is a road game against the Eagles.
Yeah, lose that. Yeah.
That goes without saying, I think.
Lose that.
Yeah, that has to be one of the toughest places to go on the road, the Link, I think. You look at kind of intimidating atmospheres to go on the road to. I think that's...
I've been.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Yeah,
saw New York Giants v. the Eagles in 2016, 2015, maybe. OBJ was playing for the Giants, and the Eagles won, and it was like quite a coup that the Eagles won. It was when the Giants were playing when the Giants were good. You know, Eli was playing then, and they were pretty decent. They were a good team, and the Eagles were not a good team at that point. And yeah, it was an experience.
It really is. It's yeah.
I can't remember the last time the Steelers won in Philly. I think it's like 1960 something. It's years and years and years.
Wow.
Proper Pennsylvania rivalry.
That is a record. Week 12, you mentioned this to you before. You are taking a home game against the Broncos.
I think I've just looked it up. The last time we beat them on the road was 1965 for the Eagles. I think we beat the Broncos. I don't actually rate them as much this year. I think they had their one great year. I still like their defense, but I got a feeling the Steelers always win 1 or 2 against really good teams in the regular season. I've got a feeling this is one we win. Again, this could be way off the mark and they completely and utterly stop us with their defense and we do nothing, but something tells me we get one over them here. And it's a game I'm actually quite looking forward to. Again, the Broncos are another team a bit like the Saints I like, but I don't think they're going to have quite the year this year that they did last year, mainly because I think when teams emerge, obviously defenses sort of learn about what they're coming up against, and it's always quite difficult to replicate such a good year in year 2. Obviously, Sean Payton's a top coach, but and they'll still be competitive, but I've got a feeling the Steelers will have one over them there.
And this will be also the Black Friday game as well on Amazon Prime. This will be 3 p.m. in Denver, so I think about 8 p.m. that will be in the UK on a Friday night, which is always quite a good one to have. You mentioned good defenses. Well, week 13, you host the Houston Texans.
I think we win that. I think it's going to be an absolutely gross, disgusting 13-10. An absolute kick fest. It will be one of the, I think it will be a bit of a offense can't do anything against 2 good defenses sort of thing. I think it will be like I think that might be a really pants game, to be honest with you. I actually have us losing to Denver the week before. So this is the first win I have after 3 losses back to back. So I had Cincinnati beating us, Philadelphia beating us, Denver beating us, and then we bounced back against Houston Texans. So though now I would maybe argue the Bengals win, we beat the Bengals after the bye week. I think that's got a bit like, just a bit of a real gross game written all over it, to be honest.
Well, week 14, you are traveling to Florida for the final time you'll play at the Everbank Stadium before it's redone up. You're taking on the Jaguars.
I think the Jags win this. I seem to be getting a few teams that I really like watching playing, and the Jags are another one that I rate. The Jags are one of these teams again that's so hard to predict because you could conceivably see them winning 14 games, but you could also conceivably see them having a stinker after one good year and winning 4 or 5 games. So hard to see. Trevor Lawrence, I thought, took a step forward last year with a competent coach. To be honest, I've always felt that Trevor Lawrence has got it in him, and he's just had so much inconsistency there that, I mean, the way that he's been managed in Jacksonville has been just atrocious from the get-go. But I like the team around Jacksonville. I think they're nicely balanced. Quite like the AFC South in general this year. I think it's quite a competitive division. May even arguably be one of the best divisions in the league, which to say that about the AFC South is a bit mental. But if you look at the teams, I mean, the Houston Texans defense is ridiculously good. And I think CJ Stroud had a bit of a down year last year, but he's got every potential to make the Texans a really good team. The Colts, again, a bit unpredictable, but they've, as we saw at the start of last season, they're also perfectly capable of being a really good team as well. The Titans with Cam Ward, I'm expecting to take a step up in year 2, and I think they're going to be pretty competitive. And then you've got the Jags, who I also think are pretty... I think that, again, I could be completely wrong and all 4 teams crash and burn. They're all more than capable of it, but I really do think that's going to be a competitive division this year, and arguably one of the best in the league. And I think we lose in Jacksonville.
Interesting. I'm not probably as high as you probably on the AFC South, but it'll certainly be competitive. I'll give you that. I think there'll be. I think the Titans, will be kind of the bottom feeder, but I think you could literally pick any of the Colts, Texans, or Jags as contenders to win that division. It's going to be interesting. Well, Week 15 is taking you until this long of the season to play your first game of the year against the Ravens, and this one is at home.
And we'll lose this one. We'll lose this one. This might be where the Ravens potentially clinch the division.
That early, Week 15.
Potentially. It depends what else. I'm quite. I think it will be. I think it might be closer than people think between first, second, and third, because it's just like that in the AFC North, and it might be one of them where the Ravens winning there might just tip that scale where they'll top the division.
Fair enough. Well, Week 16 is a home game against, well, your final home game of the regular season. You host the Carolina Panthers.
I don't know what's happening here. I seem to have all the same teams. The Panthers, again, are another team that you just don't know what's going to turn up each week. But I think the Steelers beat them at home. I really do think the Steelers are a better team than the Panthers. So I think the Steelers win that.
Fair enough. Well, Freddie Hall, this is your last pick of the episode. You're taking on the Tennessee Titans.
I think we beat them there. Experience wins over there, over the youth of Cam Ward in a late season game. I'm quite confident with that one.
Well, that will also be, fun fact, the last ever game at Nissan Stadium. So it will be the stadium clincher, the stadium closer in Tennessee. That one, that's the end of an era in Tennessee, and the final ever game at Nissan Stadium, unless of course they shock everyone and make the playoffs and win that division, which I don't think is going to happen personally. Week 18 is your final pick, Freddy Harper-Davis, as you take a road game to M&T Bank Stadium and take on the Ravens. For the final time this episode, win, lose, or tie.
I'm going to make a funny pick here and say that they miss a kick wide right at the end to lose it. So I'm going to go with the Steelers win. I don't say I believe that, but I'm going with it. I think we split the series with the Ravens anyway, so I'm happy to go with another hilarious moment where the Ravens throw it away at the end.
Well, that means that based on your predictions, you're going to go 10-7. Who would have thought it? That's
shot horror.
Incredible. But there we are. That is the end of the show. So first of all, Freddie Hall, thank you for coming on today.
Appreciate it very much, Andy. And hopefully see you soon when NFL London rocks up back again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is all starting soon. It'll be here before we know it. And of course, Franchise Tag podcast still going strong. Some good season preview so far from you guys. What's there to look forward to on the show the next few months?
Yeah, lots to look forward to. We will be having the betting show returning with Andrew and Adam. Really successful. Both Adam now a very seasoned betting writer as well. They both, I think they came up last season. as in, wins and losses and how much money was bet and stuff like that. They were both up, and it was really successful. Weekly shows from myself, talk show with Andrew and Adam, and an occasional guest here and there. I'll be attending 2 of the European games. So, yeah, lots to look forward to. Really excited for the new season to crack on.
Yeah, I think me too. This might be the most I've looked forward to ever for an NFL season in a long time. I don't know why. Maybe it's because the pressure's off with my team probably going to win 3 or 4 games. But I don't know. It just feels nice. As someone who loves the league, it's knowing that your team's going to be bad puts that pressure off, and you can just enjoy the league for what it is. I'm quite excited, but I'm not excited for those 6 p.m. games involving the Dolphins. Freddy Harper-Davis as well. Thank you as well for coming on today.
Yeah, cheers, Andy. I agree. I think this season will be quite entertaining. I know we all know that the Dolphins will win 7 or 8 games and pick in some pointless position in like 12th or something that doesn't really matter, and then the Steelers will pick about 20th because we always do. And again, it won't really make any bearing on what we do in next year's draft. So yeah, I'd love to see the Dolphins as the first overall pick and have an absolute shocker of a season, but I've just got a feeling that you'll end up galvanizing yourselves, win a few games that you shouldn't, and then pick somewhere you shouldn't. But yeah, thanks for having me on as always. I can't believe we've made it to 10 wins yet again. I must admit the comedy pick of picking the Steelers to beat the Ravens at the end, I may have worked out that we'd won 9 games at that point, but nonetheless, I think it's roughly where we'll finish. And we had a few 50-50s there that could go either way. So you never know. We might end up 13-4 and with the 1 overall seed.
I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I think picking the Dolphins, I just think that if you got A-Chain there, you're probably going to win some games, but down to him. But I'm just looking at our defense. I'm thinking about playing the likes of Jamar Chase this year, AJ Brown. I'm just thinking about that secondary up against some of these receivers we're going to play. Not too exciting. But no, otherwise, this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, our Pittsburgh Steelers season preview and team season preview 31 out of 32. Stay tuned for our final team, which will be the Jacksonville Jaguars. In the meantime, this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I have been, as ever, your host today in Andy Davis, and our 2 guests in our Steelers fans in Freddy Harper-Davis and also the franchise tag Freddie Hall. And we'll see you guys for our final season preview of the off-season. See you then.